is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Parable of the Sower, chapters 16 and 17, in which our scrappy band teams up with another small family. This could go pretty well. It could go really, really badly. I'm going to try and have some hope here. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. Oh man, guys, I came to a realization as I was reading these chapters about what is so particularly disturbing about this dystopia versus others that I have read. And I think I highlighted this little section. Where is it? About, oh yeah. So they're talking about the fires and the fact that lighting fires are illegal. That they're not supposed to be lighting them at all. It's a no burn, this is a thing that's in place right now. In many parts of California, it was in place in Colorado where my mother lived. I think it might be in place where she's in Washington right now as well. This is a common thing. But she's talking about how they're illegal, that things can catch really easily, that people who have no homes are fine with building fires because they don't have to worry about their house burning down. But that even if you have a home, like, and your house burns down, she says something about how insurance these days isn't much good. And that brought me up short because I keep forgetting that in this universe, our society and the systems in place are still technically functioning. And I keep forgetting. I keep forgetting that the police even exist, even though they're like privatized now, basically. And I keep forgetting that like anybody does public school, like the fact that her father worked at a university, like, and it fucked me up bad when I read that part and was reminded of that because I think I can wrap my mind around certain industries remaining and the police. But for some reason, insurance is such a very particular kind of industry to still be functioning in a world like this one that's falling apart. That drove it home for me more than anything so far, how much they are trying to pretend everything is normal. And there is something about that in particular that feels way too fucking familiar, folks. Guys, let's be honest. We're going to have some warfare in the United States. We're heading towards a civil war of some kind. I don't, like, at the point that we are at, I don't see any way around it. Too much is happening. Too much is happening too quickly. And there are too many people completely burying their heads in the sand. And that sort of attitude is exactly what has led up to a few different wars. And I am startled by how much we cling to things that are familiar and systems that we think will save us in situations when all human decency has gone out the window. We love systems. And don't get me wrong, I do too. When something goes wrong and you're someone like me who follows the rules, who likes, like, I'm a pretty, as much as like I can think outside the box with, in some respects, like I'm a full-time podcaster for a job. That's not really your average person. As much as I can be brave and sort of do something new and exciting and interesting in that respect, for the most part, I am someone who likes guidelines. I like structure. I like there being authority figures that I can go to for help. And I like the systems that are in place to deal with stressors so that I don't have to be the one. And when she mentions the insurance, it's so laughable when you see what's happening in this world, that there are tides of humans up and down the freeway that they can't even drive on the freeway. There's no cars. There's no fuel for cars. There's no need for that anymore. The world has shifted so dramatically. And yet we're still like taking out insurance on our homes, even though, as she puts it, the insurance isn't really worth anything anymore. But we're still doing it because that's what you do. That's what you do to protect yourself. That's one of the things that feels like you have some control over the situation. And it made me realize, like, how far when I read other dystopian books or watch TV, usually it's either a very strict system that is in place by the time the story begins. Something like 1984, right? We'll go with one of the more famous ones, where there is a system of propaganda and power that's already in place that we have explained to us as the story continues. Or you have something that's like completely lawless, like Walking Dead, where there's no structure of any kind left. It's every like clan for themselves. And it's been very easy for me in reading this to think of the situation they're in as a Walking Dead sort of scenario, because where they are, that's what it feels like. They are out in the open with the weapons that they have on them, with the food and supplies that they have on them, and that's it. So I keep on forgetting that there is this whole other part of the country that's still trying to act like everything is still how it's been. And this is not the kind of dystopia that you run into very often, and I'm realizing that why it's connecting with me so much is because of how much more realistic this feels than the others. Having an entire system in place, like in 1984, feels like such an extreme, like, okay, the powers have won. And this is an example of like exactly what happens when you are being ruled by like a fascist dictatorship with like mind control, but brainwashing essentially, yeah. But it's so almost cartoonish that you don't take it really that seriously. Or you have something that's completely lawless but feels like so outside of what we live in now that it's a distant, like not even really possibility. This like weird in between is what feels right around the corner to me. And I think I'm just so like shaken up by seeing that for some reason when I was reading it this time. I feel like I should have seen it more in earlier sections when I was like still in their little community. But that is because I was still in their community, and so I was able to like kind of ignore, I think, some of what was going on outside. And seeing things from this perspective where they're on the road and they're like totally vulnerable, but that there are other people who are still in homes with insurance. Like these two extremes existing in the same state, not just the same country, in the same state, only a few miles apart from each other. This is the kind of thing that really speaks to a disparity in wealth and privilege that we're seeing right now in our own country. We have these billionaires, or millionaires working in Silicon Valley, and half the people on their teams are living in their cars in the parking lot because they can't afford the rent in that fucking town. Like, this is something that is happening, guys. We have so many more homeless than we used to have. We have so many more people being forced to live with their parents because they can't afford rent on what they're making. And this community that she came from was families piled up in one house, sharing tons of space, like tons of rooms, between an entire, like 5 generations worth of human beings. There's 5 people to a room, you know? So this is the sort of thing that I've always said when I read, like, when I watch zombie shows or movies or read books about, like, the zombie apocalypse, I've always been the most interested in what happens in the meantime. Not when the first zombie, like, you know, when it first breaks out, and not after society has collapsed. I've always wanted to see the, like, middle. And they don't show that a lot of the times. They do in World War Z, which was fucking great. And if you guys haven't read that, please do. And they started to do that with Fear the Walking Dead, which I was excited about, but then they got away from it really quickly. So this is basically exploring exactly what I want, but without the zombies. And how much worse is that? That we don't need zombies for this to happen. These fires that she's talking about being illegal, y'all have seen what's going on in California. The wildfires out there are out of control. Like, the number of people who have died, the number of homes who have been destroyed. And I'm sure that you all, or maybe not all of you, but many of you saw a headline a week or 2 ago about how Kanye West and Kim Kardashian were able to pay private firefighters to defend their home and save their home. And they helped defend the houses of many others on that same block, which a lot of people, like, said was sort of like altruistic of them. But I have to be like, you know, that being near a burning house with your own house is super dangerous also. And having the one house that isn't burned down in a neighborhood full of charred shells doesn't do much for your public image. So they kind of had to pay for everybody else's houses in the neighborhood to be saved. But that is private firefighting, like in this story. And I was appalled at the number of people I saw in the comments who were just like, yeah, well, rich people can pay to protect themselves. That's just something we know, that rich people can do more to make their lives better than poor people. And paying firefighters is one of those things. And I mean, yes, but also, what the fuck, guys? You're just going to be accepting of that in that way and not see this for the, like, borderline dystopian nightmare that it is. So we've got people literally dying out here, but these celebrities can afford to pay private firefighters and save their shit? This is crazy. So, I'm sorry, I know I started off on this, like, giant tangent, but, like, I don't know what it is about this chapter that really got to me so bad, as opposed to the others. It just, something hammered home for me this time around that I didn't see before, and I don't know exactly why that happened. But, oh man, it's fucking me up, y'all. Also, let's talk about Harry for a second. So, in these chapters, Harry is, I had been giving Harry more credit than he really deserved, because I had been saying how glad I was that Lauren had wound up with, 2 people who seemed like they were trying to see the world clearly. Harry and Zara. Like, Harry hadn't agreed with Lauren's old friend, about the potential danger of shit going wrong and not going to that, I forget already what the name of that community was with the, water purifying, but he felt like it was basically indentured servitude and slavery, and she disagreed. So I felt like Harry had a good head on his shoulders, and Zara obviously has been out in these streets and she knows what's up. So I was very comfortable in a way with the people that Lauren was out here with. But it turns out that Harry is actually way too kind-hearted is not really the word that I want, but it's the closest I'm coming. He gives people the benefit of the doubt way too much. He's trusting and hesitant about being as... The word I want right now, honestly, is bloodthirsty. But I feel like that's being unkind and unfair. He's not willing to be as ruthless as he needs to be. Ruthless is the one. He is trying to maintain some decency. And I respect that and understand that impulse. I really do. But it's so frustrating to read, and it's really gross the way that he starts to treat Lauren when shit starts to go down. It bothered me a lot, to be honest. And I want Lauren, like at one point she said that she almost smacked him, and I kind of wanted her to. So we start off with this like section where Lauren's talking about how there was this old man who came to share their fire, and both she and Zara had to tell him like it's not fucking happening. And Harry doesn't understand why they're so like reticent to involve anybody in their group here. And Zara says, no matter how pitiful they look, they can steal you naked. Little kids, skinny and big-eyed, they'll make off with all your money, your water, your food. I know. I used to do it to people. Maybe they died. I don't know. But I didn't die. So, right there, you'd think that maybe that would, like, hammer it home for him, that she was one of these kids. She knows. But it doesn't seem like he gets it, you know? You're strong and confident, I said to him. You think you can take care of yourself out here, and maybe you can. But think what a stab wound or a broken bone would mean out here. Disablement, slow death from infection or starvation, no medical care, nothing. He looked at me as though he wasn't sure he wanted to know me anymore. What then? He asked. Everyone's guilty until proven innocent? Guilty of what? And how do they prove themselves to you? I don't give a piss whether they're innocent or not, Zara said. Let them tend to their own business. Harry, your mind is still back in the neighborhood, I said. You think a mistake is when your father yells at you or you break a finger or chip a tooth or something. Out here, a mistake, one mistake, and you may be dead. Remember that guy today? What if that happened to us? And she talks about this guy that they saw, like, get tripped up and robbed in the space of, like, 3 seconds. And nobody was able to, like, if anybody had been motivated to step in, there's nothing they could have done anyway. But of course nobody was going to step in because they didn't want to be robbed themselves. And, you know, the whole way that, like, he tries to argue this is that he's trying to frame it as if Lauren's saying, we shouldn't help each other. And that's not what she's saying, dude. And I'm just so over him, like, being this pig-headed... what more does he have to see? That's really what it comes down to for me. You are out here in this world too. Lauren shouldn't have to remind you of all the shit you've seen. So why is this not sinking in your fucking brain, dude? What exactly do you think is going on? Are you acting like shit that you've seen is like accidental? Coincidence? What, you know, he's talking about pulling a guy off Zara, and I'm like, yeah, somebody almost raped her. Again, maybe you shouldn't trust people. Like, what are you talking about? Do you want to break off with us? Zara asked. To go your own way without us? His gaze softened as he looked at her. No, of course not. But we don't have to turn into animals, for God's sake. In a way, we do, I said. We're a pack, the three of us. And all those other people out there aren't in it. If we're a good pack and we work together, we have a chance. You can be sure we aren't the only pack out there. You damn sure talk macho enough to be a guy. I almost hit him. Maybe Zara and I would be better off without him. But no, that wasn't true. Numbers mattered. Friendship mattered. One real male presence mattered. Don't repeat that, I whispered, leaning close to him. Never say that again. There are other people all over these hills. You don't know who's listening. You give me away and you weaken yourself. That reached him. Sorry, he said. So, they are sitting together and she goes on watch. I Oh no, this isn't actually quite when she goes on watch. This is when they're just sitting together. And at one point, Zara sort of nudges her with her foot. And Lauren looks up, and there are two dudes there, standing way too close, and they have knives. And are looking at Zara in this certain way. And Zara is really attractive. So she draws attention, unfortunately, because of how beautiful she is. And it's very clear that these guys are going to try and rape her. And Lauren stands up and has her gun out. Fucking thumbs back the safety. And the guy's in the middle of like, what are you going to shoot us for just standing here? And she's like, you know what? Yeah, maybe. She like lifts the gun. Hey, no trouble. The talker raised his hands, backing away. Take it easy, man. I let them go. I think it would have been better to shoot them. I'm afraid of guys like that. Guys looking for trouble, looking for victims. But it seems I can't quite shoot someone just because I'm afraid of him. I killed a man on the night of the fire, and I haven't thought much about it, but this was different. It was like what Harry said about stealing. I've heard thou shalt not kill all my life, but when you have to, you kill. I wonder what Dad would say about that. But then, he was the one who taught me to shoot. So, when she says that they should go on watch now, because of the fact that these two dudes might be back with more friends, God knows, you know. He says you would have done it, wouldn't you? Yeah, wouldn't you? Yes, I wouldn't have wanted to, but those guys were out for fun. Their idea of fun, anyway. He glanced at Zara. He had pulled one man off her and taken a beating for it. Maybe the obvious threat to her would keep him alert. Anything that would keep him alert couldn't be all bad. So yeah, maybe? But like, it's so frustrating to me how little he respects Lauren as much as she knows what the fuck she's talking about in a lot of ways. But Zara has been out in these streets too. And like, Zara being hot apparently gives her a pass in his eyes because he doesn't judge her, or doesn't seem to, the way that he judges Lauren for a lot of the same things. I don't know. There's something really uneven about the difference in the way that he talks to them both and looks at her and treats her. And it just pisses me the fuck off. So she asks Zara if she even knows how to use the gun, and she does. And Zara is saying that she always wanted to go and practice with everybody else, but that her husband, in quotes, would not let her. And Lauren says that she's going to take the first watch. The only thing that kind of disturbs them in the night is a couple of dogs running around, some gunfire far away. But I like this little conversation that she has with Zara while she's like falling asleep. Zara, first of all, can't read and write, so she asks Lauren to teach her how to do that. And then she talks about how she didn't like Lauren when they were back in the community because she misunderstood Lauren's enthusiasm for learning how to do like menial tasks, like how to skin and butcher rabbits and things like this. She thought that like Lauren just stuck her nose in where it didn't belong and got into everybody's business. And now she realizes that Lauren was looking into all of this and trying to learn it because she knew someday she would need it. And she somehow like saw this coming. And Lauren's like, well, I didn't see this coming, but I figured that something was going to happen. And I like this that Zara says I should have seen some of that stuff coming, but I didn't. Those big walls, and everybody had a gun. There were guards every night. I thought we were so strong. And I like that moment because it shows that even after having lived on the street, like, human beings just crave stability, and Zara like should know better than anybody that you can't really find that in this world, but she still let herself believe it, even though she shouldn't. So yeah, she says that she saw people moving around. She saw guns. She heard gunfire, individual shots, and short bursts of automatic weapons fire. That last and the dogs worried me and scared me. A pistol would be no protection against a machine gun. And dogs might not know enough to be afraid of guns. Would a pack keep coming if I shot 2 or 3 of its members? I sat in a cold sweat, longing for walls, or at least for another magazine or 2 for the gun. It was nearly midnight when I woke Harry, gave him the gun and the watch, and made him as uncomfortable as I could by warning him about the dogs, the gunfire, and the many people who wandered around at night. He did look awake and alert enough when I lay down. So she gets woken up by some dude like falling on top of her. And it's some random stranger. It's not the 2 dudes that had come by earlier, which is what I really assumed initially. It's some other 2 dudes with like long hair, and one of them has fallen across her, and the other is fighting Harry for the gun. And Harry's losing. So Lauren gets up and grabs a rock and bashes him over the back of the head. And of course, she goes down because of this. And this means that she has revealed she has revealed her disability, for lack of a better way of saying it. And has to explain this to them later. And she says, I got up swaying from the residual shock of the blow. I felt sick and dizzy and my head hurt. A few days before, Harry had made me feel that way and we'd both recovered. Did that mean the man I'd hit would recover? I checked him. He was still alive, unconscious, not feeling any pain now. What I was feeling was my own reaction to the blow I'd struck. The other one's dead, Harry said. This one, well, you caved in the back of his head. I don't know why he's still alive. Oh, no, I whispered. Oh, hell, give me the gun. Why? My fingers had found the blood and broken skull, soft and pulpy at the back of the stranger's head. Harry was right. He should have been dead. Give me the gun, I repeated, and held out a bloody hand for it. Unless you want to do this yourself. You can't shoot him. You can't just... I hope you'd find the courage to shoot me if I were like that and out here with no medical care to be had. We shoot him or leave him here alive. How long do you think it'll take him to die? Maybe he won't die. I went to my pack, struggling to navigate without throwing up. I pulled it away from the dead man, groped within it, and found my knife. It was a good knife, sharp and strong. I flicked it open and cut the unconscious man's throat with it. Not until the flow of blood stopped did I feel safe. The man's heart had pumped his life away into the ground. He could not regain consciousness and involve me in his agony. But of course, I was far from safe. Perhaps the last 2 people from my old life were about to leave me. I had shocked and horrified them. I wouldn't blame them for leaving. Strip the bodies, I said. Take what they have, then we'll put them into the scrub oaks down the hill where we gathered wood. So, okay. They find money, a little bit of money, food. There's 1 knife between them. Then, let's see. I'm trying to find the spot where they like actually have this conversation, because for a while they just work in silence, stripping the bodies, moving the bodies. By mutual consent, we moved camp. This meant nothing more than gathering our bundles and sleep sacks and carrying them over the next low ridge and out of sight of where we had been. And this is when she explains to them about herself and what's going on. And Zara says, so you felt it as if you had hit yourself. So you killed that guy because if they're dead, you don't feel anything? I killed him because he was a threat to us, to me in a special way, but to you too. What could we have done about him? Abandon him to the flies, the ants, and the dogs? You might have been willing to do that, but would Harry? Could we stay with him? For how long? To what purpose? Or would we dare to hunt up a cop and try to report seeing a guy hurt without involving ourselves? Cops are not trusting people. I think they would want to check us out, hang on to us for a while, maybe charge us with attacking the guy and killing his friend. What would you have done? I don't know, he said, his voice hard with disapproval. I only know I wouldn't have done what you did. Seriously, though, fucking... I have to be straight up with you guys. Sometimes I worry about myself because, any of the other options that she just presented, it never even occurred to me. Going to the cops? Are you kidding me? Sitting there and waiting with the guy? He's not waking up. That guy's fucked up now. And leaving him there is crueler than anything. Way crueler. What are you talking about? What she did is the only option. The only good option. And is it awful that she had to, like, slit an unconscious man's throat? Yeah, that sucks. But they fucking attacked you. So guess the fuck what, dude? I'm so mad at him in this scene. Like, I swear to God. I'm so mad. He made me so mad. And then we have Zara. And because, you know, she's waiting for their reactions to, like, her disability and whether they want to keep on running with her because of her, you know, being a liability in some ways, being vulnerable. And Zara talks about her mom and how her mom was always on drugs and that she had a bunch of babies. Everybody's mama took drugs and hoarded to pay for them and had babies all the time and threw them away like trash when they died. Most of the babies did die from the drugs or accidents or not having enough to eat or being alone so much or from being sick. They were always getting sick. Some of them were born sick. And she gets into some really awful shit about, like, the disabilities and the brain damage and all of this. And then says, you ain't got nothing wrong with you, Lauren. Nothing worth worrying about. That parasito shit was baby milk. How was it that I had not gotten to know this woman back in the neighborhood? I hugged her. She seemed surprised, then hugged back. We both looked at Harry. What would you do if that guy had only broken an arm or leg? I think I'd let him go, I said, and I'm sure I would be sorry for it. It would be a long time before I stopped looking over my shoulder. You wouldn't kill him to escape the pain? I never killed anyone back in the neighborhood to escape pain. But a stranger, I said what I would do. What if I broke my arm? Then I might not be much good to you. I would be having trouble with my arm too, after all. But we'd have 2 good arms between us. We grew up together, Harry. You know me. You know what kind of person I am. I might fail you, but if I could help myself, I wouldn't betray you. I thought I knew you. Harry, get the fuck over yourself. I am so over, like, seriously. I just wish that there was a way to run a simulation so that they could do some of the dumbass shit he's suggesting or not suggesting. I should point out that he doesn't, when she asks what he would do, he doesn't have a fucking answer. So maybe instead of sitting there being judgy with her, come up with at least one fucking scenario in which you know what you would have done. Because otherwise, you don't get to say shit, dude. Shut the fuck up. I'm so mad at him. Sorry, guys. But I really, like... And then he calls her a manipulative bitch. Dude. Like, I just can't with him. I can't. And they treat it like it's a joke, and I guess, but, like, no. He doesn't get to be mad. He doesn't get anything. The only reason that they aren't kicking you out is because you're a man, and they need somebody male around to make them less of a target. So, you're replaceable, is what I'm saying. And he's asking her about, like, the fact that she was able to hide this the whole time. And he says something about her being a really good actor, which I felt like was really insinuating that she's like a fraud or fake somehow. And I didn't like that either. So then he says, well, then I want to know something about you that's really real. So I've seen you writing in your journal. Let me read some of that, which honestly isn't a terrible idea. Like, as much as I want to be like, dude, that's none of your fucking business. I kind of get that. Like, you're about to put your life in each other's hands and be a team. I guess establishing some kind of trust, you need to be willing to be super vulnerable in this way. But it just never even occurred to me that other people were going to start reading this. So she showed him, all that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. She's being really careful to show him only the things that are not so revolutionary, I feel like. She's wanting to be a little bit stead in what she shows him. Which we find out later. She continues doing, like, with the other people who wind up joining up with them. So, chapter 17 begins. And they're walking, and there's a fire that starts out small, and then it begins to get pretty out of control. And they're far away from it. They're not in danger of it right now. But it's close enough that they decide that it's probably a good idea for them to get, like, down near the shoreline. And Zara is crying as she looks at the fire because it's reminding her of losing her baby and the neighborhood going up. And I really, like, I'm going to read this. But it's the fire that holds our attention. Maybe it was started by accident, maybe not. But still, people are losing what they may not be able to replace. Even if they survive, insurance isn't worth much these days. So that was the one. That was the moment where I was just like, Jesus, really? People on the highway, shadowy in the darkness, had begun to reverse the flow, to drift northward to find a way to the fire. Best to be early for the scavenging. So Zara is asking if they should go and scavenge. And fucking Harry, again, you mean go back and rob those people? They're dead, Harry. They're gonna be dead, you fucking idiot. I'm so... But Lauren says that they should stay and rest because it's going to be a long time before it's cool enough to pick through anything. And it's like long ways out of their way. So it's probably not worthwhile. There's going to be so many people drawn to it too. Like they're probably not going to be able to find anything good. We don't have to do things like that anyway, Harry said. Zara shrugged. Every little bit helps. You were crying about that fire a while ago. Zara drew her knees up against her body. I wasn't crying about that fire. I was crying about our fire and my BB and thinking about how much I hate people who set fires like that. I wish they would burn. I wish I could burn them. I wish I could just take them and throw them in the fire like they did my BB. And she began to cry again, and he held her, apologizing, and I think shedding a few tears himself. Grief hit like that. Something would remind us of the past, of home, of a person, and then we would remember that it was all gone. The person was dead, or probably dead. Everything we'd known and treasured was gone. Everything except the three of us. And how well were we doing? Yeah. Grief is like that, though. That shit sneaks up on you. So, yeah, this is when he says, I want to be higher, closer to the level of the freeway or above it. I want to be able to see the fire if it jumps the freeway and spreads toward us. So, he decides to go and scope out the area to find some place that's a good spot for them to camp out. And she's thinking to herself that, like, he's still acting weird around her and is still obviously not super comfortable, that her cold-bloodedness bothered him. But at the same time, she's sort of like, you know what? Maybe it should. Maybe it should bother me more. Like, I don't know. I'm doing what I think I need to do. But the verses that she showed him from the Earthseed, like, concept, he really liked. So that has helped restore his, like, trust in her a little bit. And yeah, it's an interesting thing that she says here. I showed him 4 verses in all, gentle, brief verses that might take hold of him without his realizing it and live in his memory without his intending that they should. Bits of the Bible had done that to me, staying with me even after I stopped believing. I gave to Harry and through him to Zara, thoughts I wanted them to keep, but I couldn't prevent Harry from keeping other things as well. His new distrust of me, for instance, almost his new dislike. I was not quite Lauren Olamina to him any longer. I had seen that in his expression off and on all day. Odd. Joanne hadn't liked her glimpse of the real me either. On the other hand, Zara didn't seem to mind. But then she hadn't known me very well at home. What she learned now she could accept without feeling lied to. Harry did feel lied to, and perhaps he wondered what lies I was still telling, or living. Only time could heal that, if he let it. Yeah. You know, honestly, fuck Harry. Like, I'm done with the guy. I don't care about whether you feel lied to. This is a life or death situation. Get over it. And I understand about the trust thing, but seriously, you are living in a community in a whole different situation, and you have no right to expect someone to be 100% honest with you about everything regarding who they are when you're not in a situation that absolutely requires that. This is a situation where that kind of trust needs to be there, sure. But that's not where they were, and for him to think he's entitled to that level of knowledge of her is just really, like, kind of gross, and she does not owe you anything, dude. She never owed you anything. And she's being straightforward with you now, and you seem to, like, not appreciate that. So why would she have done it then? Because she knew that you would react like this. You know, gets me so irritated. So they have a pretty good spot where they're going to camp out, and they're supposed to be on watch. I think it's supposed to be Harry that's on watch. And they fucking have sex, Harry and Zara, instead of watching. And she's laying there so irritated. And also, like, actually feeling what they're feeling, of course, because they're having sex right near her. It says, I couldn't escape their sensation. I couldn't keep an efficient watch. I could either writhe with them or hold myself rigid. I held rigid until they finished, until Harry kissed Zara, then got up to put his pants on and began his watch. And I lay awake afterward, angry and worried. How in hell could I talk to either of them about this? It would be none of my business except for the time they chose for doing it, but look when that was. We could all have been killed. Still sitting up, Harry began to snore. So she wakes him up and is just like, give me the fucking gun and go back to sleep. And he's just laying there and, like, really irritated at her. Like, it's that transference, right? Where he's irritated at himself, but he projects it at her because his pride is wounded that she caught him fucking up. But she thinks that the fact that she, like, embarrassed him and made him feel angry woke him up, so he does not keep snoring. So she knows, as far as she knows, because she falls asleep. So then they go to a commercial water station, and this is actually pretty interesting. Today we stopped at a commercial water station and filled ourselves and all our containers with clean, safe water. Commercial stations are best for that. Anything you buy from a water peddler on the freeway ought to be boiled, and still might not be safe. Boiling kills disease and organisms, but may not do anything to get rid of chemical residue. Fuel, pesticides, herbicides, whatever else has been in the bottles that the peddlers use. The fact that most peddlers can't read makes the situation worse. They sometimes poison themselves. Commercial stations let you draw whatever you pay for and not a drop more right out of one of their taps. You drink whatever the local householders are drinking. It might taste, smell, or look bad, but you can depend on it not to kill you. There aren't enough water stations. That's why water peddlers exist. Also, water stations are dangerous places. People going in have money. People coming out have water, which is as good as money. Beggars and thieves hang around such places, keeping the whores and drug dealers company. Dad warned us all about water stations, trying to prepare us in case we ever went out and got caught out far enough from home to be tempted to stop for water. His advice? Don't do it. Suffer. Get your rear end home. 3 is the smallest comfortable number at a water station. 2 to watch, 1 to fill up, and it's good to have 3 ready for trouble on the way to and from the station. 3 would not stop determined thugs, but it would stop opportunists, and most predators are opportunists. They prey on old people, lone women, women with young kids, handicapped people. They don't want to get hurt. My father used to call them coyotes. When he was being polite, he called them coyotes. So, a couple of dudes try and attack this couple who have a baby and steal their water. And Lauren steps in and trips the guy and grabs the pack of water and manages to, like, let them know that there are other people here who will cause problems for them if they keep trying to attack this couple, and they get up and leave. 'Cause they're outnumbered. And she hands it back to them, and they wind up sort of, like, following this trio because they can sense that they're maybe going to look out for them a little, and being near them is a good idea. But Meanwhile, Harry, all of a sudden you're a good Samaritan. Ah, shut up, Harry. Just shut up. I don't want to hear any more out of your mouth. Zara and I had a talk this morning during her reading lesson. Remember what you said to me a couple of days ago? I asked her. My mind was wandering and you warned me people get killed on freeways all the time. To my surprise, she saw where I was headed at once. Damn you, she said, looking up from the paper I had given her. You don't sleep sound enough, that's all. You want privacy, I'll give it to you, I said. Just let me know and I'll guard the camp from someplace a short distance away. You two can do what you want, but no more of this shit when you're on the watch. She looked surprised. I didn't think you said words like that. And I didn't think you did things like last night. Dumb. I know. Fun, though. He's a big, strong boy. She paused. You jealous? Zara. Don't worry, she said. Things took me by surprise last night. I needed something. Someone. It won't be like that no more. Okay. You jealous? She repeated. I made myself smile. I'm as human as you are, I said, but I don't think I would have yielded to temptation out here with no prospects, no idea what's going to happen. The thought of getting pregnant would have stopped me cold. People have babies out here all the time, she grinned at me. What about you and that boyfriend of yours? We were careful. We used condoms. Zara shrugged. Well, Harry and me didn't. If it happens, it happens. Yeah, if it happens, it happens. Girl, that's not a way to live your life. Come on. So, they get to the ocean. And I love this because they just stand and stare at it. And they've never been, she says, we'd never before seen water enough to swim in. Which is just such a crazy thought. And I really like this too because I grew up at the shore. You know, I grew up in Connecticut. My grandmother had a house right near the beach. My ex-husband's parents had a beach house. It's just always been a part of my life. And I took for granted what it's like to live somewhere where that's just part of being, part of being, period. And Owen and I visited Galveston a couple of years ago. And we crested this hill and the ocean was spread out in front of us because we were at the top of this hill and you could just see all around because it was almost a peninsula that we were at. And Owen, I forget, the ocean is not a thing in his life. He's been in landlocked section of Texas, like he's up north. And he was in California once, but I don't know that he went to the beach while he was there. And I think other than that, he's been to the beach once with his grandparents. So we come over the hill and he just goes, holy shit, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is that to the horizon with the water? And I was like, what do you, I didn't know what he meant. I really didn't. And I was like, what do you mean? What is that? And he's like, look at that line. And I was like, babe, that's the ocean. And he was like, Jesus Christ, it's huge. And it was such an amazing moment because it just never occurred to me what it was like to somebody who had never seen it before, you know? And even for me, Connecticut's very hilly and rocky. So I see the ocean, but this was still quite a panoramic view that I wouldn't get that much in Connecticut. So it was still impressive for me, someone who's very familiar with the ocean. And it was just one of those moments that I got to see through his eyes for a second, that wonder. And that's beautiful, you know, those moments. It's like having a kid in some ways. And I can see how people like to experience things with their children, somebody who's seeing something for the first time. So this moment in this book just kind of made me think of that and it's beautiful. It's a moment of joy and happiness in this awful story. They're people spread out. They're not trying to be in each other's faces. They're able to go swim. She has to wait until night to swim and has to swim in her clothes because she's supposed to be a boy. So she doesn't want to reveal herself, but she's still able to do it. And it just feels great. And they've been so grungy and grimy and now they're clean, kind of, at least. And the whole thing just feels so such a relief, you know, and I really appreciated this. But the people that they had saved are still kind of nearby. And she goes over to them and offers to look after their kid if they want to get in the water. And And Harry's like, well, are you afraid they'll rob us? And I'm like, dude, how are you this fucking stupid? They're following you guys around for protection. That's so obvious. What are you thinking? And Lauren says they have better gear than we do, and they have no natural allies around here except us. Mixed couples or groups are rare out here. No doubt that's why they've kept close to us. So she goes over and she says something about we're natural allies. Allies, the man said, and he laughed. I looked at him, wondering why he laughed. What the hell do you really want? He demanded. I just like, when he laughed, I was just like, these men out here don't understand shit. What do you mean laughing at the word allies? You think in this world allies aren't like the only thing that's going to save your ass? What the fuck is wrong with you? So finally, they came during my watch. I saw movement far down the beach and I focused on it. Then there was shouting, screams. I thought it was a fight or robbery. I didn't see the dogs until they broke away from a group of humans and ran inland. One of them was carrying something, but I couldn't tell what it was. I watched them until they vanished inland. People chased them for a short distance, but the dogs were too fast. Someone's property was lost. Someone's food, no doubt. Yo, I don't know if I've told the story, but I went on this like hike through the mountains in Guatemala. That was like a 5-day hike, and we would just sleep in tents. Or we weren't even sleeping in tents, actually. I think we were just sleeping in our sleeping bags outside. And fucking dogs came and stole my food and like ripped open my bag. And I had the food mixed in with my clothes, so my clothes were strewn like hundreds of yards away up the slope. I was so pissed. Oh, I woke up so angry. So yeah, some of my clothes were ruined and all my food was gone. And this just, yeah, made me think of that. And then the dogs fucking go after the baby of that couple. And she comes over and shoots the dog. Manages to kill it, like, at least because it's, yeah, you know, she's going to feel the pain continuing if it's not killed right away. So she still falls down and, like, feels like she's been kicked in the chest. But at the very least, it seems like it's over. And she says, from my prone position, I sighted on them as they ran. I might have been able to pick off one more of them, but I let them go. I heard enough already. I couldn't catch my breath, it seemed. As I gasped, though, it occurred to me that prone was a good shooting position for me. Sharing would be less able to incapacitate me at once if I shot two-handed and prone. I filed the knowledge away for future use. It's a really interesting idea. I just wonder how that's going to get incorporated, if at all. Also, it was interesting that the dogs had been frightened by my shot. Was it the sound that scared them, or the fact that one of them had been hit? I wish I knew more about them. I've read books about them being intelligent, loyal pets, but that's all in the past. Dogs now are wild animals who will eat a baby if they can. I felt that the dog I had shot was dead. It wasn't moving. But by now, a lot of people were awake and moving around. A living dog, even wounded, would be frantic to get away. So, she finally sits up, and this moment, so you hit something, he said. I nodded. Killed a dog. I'll be okay soon. You need a keeper, he said. Dogs were after the baby. You've adopted those damn people. What's wrong with that? Get in your bag and go to sleep, will you? I'll take the next watch. Some people just came and carried off the dog you killed, Zara said. We should have got it. I'm not ready to eat a dog yet, Harry told her. Go to sleep. Harry, how are you so picky, though? If dogs being pets is all in the past, why is he worried about eating one? Just like straight up question. You know, like if there's an animal that you grew up and it wasn't socialized to be a pet to you, why wouldn't you eat it if you were like hungry and on the road and had no supplies? Like, I'm not trying to say that I'm like that cold-blooded that I'd be like, yeah, I'll eat a dog in my situation now. But like if I was hiking and I got lost and I was out in the middle of nowhere and there was a squirrel or something, you bet your ass I'd try and eat that squirrel. I'd try. I don't know, say that I'm succeeding at this, but I just don't understand Harry. I just can't handle Harry. He's infuriating. So the couple finally comes over, and they have some milk chocolate with almonds. And I love that she says real milk chocolate, not carob candy, which I'm like, yeah, carob is garbage. And don't even talk about it in the same sentence as chocolate. People act like they're like interchangeable. Get the fuck out of here. And the baby is okay. Just had some scratches. The mom is much more willing to trust them all because in her eyes, like, Lauren saved her baby. They are friends now. But the father is much more suspicious still. And they're talking about where they're headed. They're trying to get to Seattle, that they know somebody there who might be able to get them a job. Navidad, what is it that her name is? Natividad is what she wants to be called. And Travis is the husband's name. Natividad is nursing the baby and talking about the poetry that Lauren's writing. And Harry says she's always writing. Ask her to read her poetry. And fucking outs Lauren and the fact that she's a woman. And Harry, she's just like so annoyed at him. We forgot to buy that tape for your mouth. He shook his head, then gave me an embarrassed smile. I think it's all right this time, though. Dude, honestly, I just don't. All right, I'm sorry. I'm ragging on Harry this whole thing, but like seriously, the three of us aren't going to help you look strong, Travis said. He sounded bitter. Did he resent the baby and Natividad? You are our natural allies, I said. You sneered at the last time I said it, but it's true. The baby won't weaken us much, I hope, and he'll have a better chance of surviving with 5 adults around him. I can take care of my wife and my son, Travis said with more pride than sense. I decided not to hear him. You and Natividad look strong and healthy, I said. Predators will look at a group like the 5 of us and move on to easier prey. Travis grunted, still non-committal. Well, I had helped him twice, and now I was a woman. It might take him a while to forgive me for that, no matter how grateful he was. Yeah, she's right, though. That probably isn't helping. Being a woman just makes men feel like, well, So she starts, I put my journal down and picked up my book of Earthseed verses. I chose soft, non-preachy verses, good for road-weary minds and bodies. And that is the end of chapter 17. All right. Yay. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you again to Danique for commissioning this. Danique, I am going to be doing another one of these episodes soon, because I still have a blank check that was written for me by another commissioner, and I want to continue reading this, and I know that it can be hard for you to do the commissions, so I will keep you posted. I'll email you once I have a date, and I hope that you guys have all been enjoying this coverage. Let me know what you think, and I will see you soon, hopefully with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.